Robyn never received any of the money. When we bought our houses, Robyn's kickback from the house went to other family members. I felt safe, and she felt safe with me. She's just an open book to me.
Kody Brown just said the quiet part out loud, and fans are absolutely losing it. In a moment that felt more like a religious sermon than a reality TV confession, Kody claimed his relationship with Robyn was divinely appointed, and let's just say, the internet did not receive it as a blessing. For years, fans have watched Kody's obsession with Robyn unfold like a slow-motion car crash. But nothing, not the favoritism, not the tears, not even the silent treatment he gave his other kids, comes close to what he just dropped on national TV.
I'm pretty sure Kody has even told Christine to her face that she wasn't good enough. When someone knows what makes you doubt yourself, they can use that info to control you better. Hearing Christine and Janelle recognize this manipulation tactic is really sad.
In a jaw-dropping moment during the season 19 tell-all, Kody declared that his bond with Robyn wasn't just special, it was heaven-sent, as in handpicked by God, divine, sacred, untouchable. And the way he said it, like it justified everything. Every betrayal, every abandonment, every dollar funneled into Robyn's side of the family. Fans were stunned. Ex-wives were visibly uncomfortable, and social media lit up with one burning question. Has Kody officially lost it, or has he finally revealed what he believed all along? Because if his love for Robyn is divine, what does that make everyone else? Disposable? Unchosen? It wasn't just a cringe-worthy moment, it was a mask-off one. And the fallout might be even worse than he expected. It was the moment that cracked open a conversation no one was ready to have. As Kody stared directly into the camera and announced that his marriage to Robyn wasn't a regular love story, but a spiritual match appointed by a higher power, the studio went silent. You could almost hear Christine blink. Janelle's jaw visibly tightened. Even Robyn looked like she wasn't quite ready for that level of reverence. But Kody, he looked proud, triumphant, as if finally, after all the chaos and heartbreak, the truth had set him free. Or at least, had justified the mess. And that's what made it so unsettling. Because if this was his truth all along, what does that say about the women he left behind? And the children who watched it happen? We're only at the beginning, but buckle up. Because the sermon's not over.
He just always somehow thinks he's somehow entitled to more, which is just, it's astounding.
He didn't flinch. Not when Christine stiffened. Not when Janelle's eyes started to glass over. Not even when the host gave him that raised eyebrow. Are you sure you want to say that on television? Kind of look. Kody Brown stood firm in what sounded like a spiritual mic drop, that his connection with Robyn was divinely appointed. No caveats, no softening, just a full-throated declaration that rebranded his controversial favoritism as sacred order. And it hit like a thunderclap. Because for over a decade, he's insisted he loved all his wives equally, that polygamy was God's will, that the family unit was the priority. So when he spoke now, not as a man in love but as a man under divine instruction, it wasn't just betrayal, it was biblical betrayal. The irony didn't go unnoticed. Kody, the same man who spent entire seasons railing against spiritual disobedience when his wives showed independence, was now painting his emotional affairs as part of a divine plan. Fans erupted. Tweets called it a gaslight gospel. One Reddit thread asked if Kody was trying to start his own church, and another claimed he's weaponizing religion to explain away abandonment. And whether you agree or not, the optics were messy, especially because Robyn didn't exactly look thrilled to be cast as Kody's chosen one. Her expression stayed frozen, part shocked, part poker face, and part please stop talking.
I just think he's always looking out for himself and now for Robyn and himself.
And yet, Kody kept going. Because to him, this wasn't just an admission, it was absolution. If God gave him Robyn, then surely he's not to blame for what followed. The growing distance from his other wives, the obvious imbalance in how affection, time, and money were distributed, the relationships that withered on camera. If it was always meant to be Robyn, maybe, just maybe, the rest was never truly meant to last. That's the line fans think he was walking. And it sent a chill, because it reframes everything. Not just how he loved Robyn, but how he unloved everyone else. And if Kody thinks heaven approved the Robyn era, what else does he believe was justified by that same divine permission slip? The answer might be even more disturbing. Here's where things start getting even darker. because once Kody dropped the divine bond bomb, fans started going back, rewatching old episodes, rereading old interviews, and realizing something chilling.
I think he really is just kind of inherently selfish.
This wasn't new, not really. Maybe he never used the word divine before, but the subtext was always there. The lingering gazes at Robyn, the emotional withdrawals from his other wives, the way he bent every family rule to make her feel safe, secure, special. It was all adding up to something ordained. Or at least, in his mind, inevitable. And now that he's said it out loud, fans are asking, did Kody always believe this? That Robyn was the one and the rest were just part of the prelude? Insiders close to the family, according to unverified online chatter, have allegedly whispered for years that Kody believed Robyn was chosen, that from the moment she entered the picture, he saw her as his spiritual equal, his soul match, as one source called it. And suddenly, it casts a whole new light on the way he treated Mary, Janelle, and Christine.
If I want to buy her jewelry, if I want her to feel special all the time, if I'm in love with a woman, I think that is her fault.
Not as equals, not as cherished partners, but as obligations he had to endure until fate or faith gave him the green light to start over. And when that moment came, he didn't walk. He sprinted straight into Robyn's house, straight out of the plural family model he once defended so loudly. Christine's exit makes even more sense now. Remember when she said she felt like a basement wife, unloved and unseen? Back then, people thought she was being dramatic. But if Kody had already mentally and spiritually moved on, then Christine wasn't exaggerating. She was catching on. Same with Janelle, who clung to the idea of equal partnership long after it stopped existing. And Mary, well, Mary stayed the longest, but was given the least. Because if Kody had already decided that God wanted him with Robyn, then wasn't everyone else already living on borrowed time? That realization is what has people so shaken, because it suggests that the collapse of the Brown family wasn't just tragic, it was planned. And if Kody truly saw it as prophecy, then what he does next might be even more shocking than what he just confessed.
I mean, I have a good relationship with Mary. And I still am not talking with Christine.
The most unsettling part? Robyn didn't object. Not once. She didn't rush to soften Kody's words. She didn't clarify that he loved his other wives too. She sat there, quiet, composed, almost regal, as if she'd heard this all before. And maybe she had. Maybe this divine bond theory wasn't just a sudden lightbulb moment for Kody, but something they've talked about privately for years. Because as much as Robyn's been painted as the tearful, reluctant favorite, the truth might be murkier. Fans are now wondering, has she quietly accepted the throne while pretending not to notice the crown? What really threw people was her body language. At first glance, she looked caught off guard. But if you watched closely, really closely, you'd notice the absence of shock. She didn't interrupt. She didn't flinch. In fact, some viewers say she looked almost serene. And that calm, in contrast to the emotional wreckage sitting beside her, only fueled speculation that this narrative had been building behind closed doors. Robyn, who once sobbed over being the scapegoat, now seemed oddly unmoved as her husband declared their marriage a divine exception. Was this quiet acceptance or quiet satisfaction? Because here's what makes it sting even more. Robyn has always insisted she didn't want to be the favorite, that she longed for sisterhood and equality. But this moment shattered that illusion.
I am defensive a little bit because of what's gone on with Janelle and with Christine and with the kids.
It's hard to claim reluctance when you're sitting beside a man publicly announcing that God chose you, and you don't say a word, not to correct, not to share the spotlight, not to deflect. You just sit there, like a queen at a coronation she didn't ask for, but definitely isn't refusing. It's moments like these that make fans question everything they thought they knew about Robyn. Was she truly dragged into this mess, or was she more complicit than she let on? Because if she believed in this divine appointment too, then how much of the family's breakdown was orchestrated, not just by Kody, but with her full emotional buy-in? And if she's been playing the long game, what's the next move on the board? The silence she held might say more than any speech ever could. That silence echoed louder than any scream, because while Robyn sat composed, the other women looked like they'd just been slapped. Christine's polite smile froze in place like a cracked porcelain mask. Janelle gave that familiar tight-lipped look she wears when she's trying not to lose it on camera. Even Mary, who's long been detached from Kody emotionally, seemed to recoil, just slightly. The emotional fallout of that divine bond claim was written across their faces, and fans caught every second of it. Screenshots flooded social media within minutes, zoomed in and annotated like a football replay. People weren't just watching, they were analyzing. And what they saw wasn't just shock. It was confirmation that everything these women had suspected for years had just been said out loud.
He knows the buttons to push. So with me, it was like, no, we're not going to be intimate anymore. Then he'd be like, well, you know, you could do this and put it all on everybody else. He knows how to push the buttons, but he doesn't know how to take accountability for the fact that he just pushed a button.
Because here's the kicker. This wasn't just about favoritism. This was about erasure. Christine spent over 25 years with Kody. Janelle built an entire lifestyle around his belief system. Mary was the first wife, his original spiritual match if you want to talk divine. And yet, in just a few sanctimonious words, he seemed to sweep it all away. Their marriages weren't appointed. Their sacrifices weren't sacred. Their heartbreaks, their late-night tears, their loyalty, they weren't divine, just collateral. That's what stung. That's what cracked something wide open in the fanbase. And it wasn't just emotional pain on display, it was clarity. Christine, in particular, looked like someone who just had the final piece of the puzzle click into place. This wasn't a sudden change in Kody. This was who he'd always been. She said as much during her exit seasons. But now the audience saw it too. Not just in his choices, but in his justifications. That's what's turning this tell-all into something deeper than just messy reality TV. It's become a retroactive reframing of the entire Brown family saga. And if Kody's rewriting the story as a one-wife love story ordained from above, where does that leave everyone else? Because the next question fans are whispering is brutal. If he sees his past wives as mistakes, what about his children? Have they been left out of the divine plan too? And that's where things start to really unravel. Because if Kody's so comfortable suggesting his relationship with Robyn was divinely appointed, does that mean the children he shares with Christine, Janelle, and Mary were part of a mismatched destiny? That's the ripple effect no one can unhear. Fans weren't just angry, they were heartbroken.
But she's like, I saw where all the money was going. And how much money Kody took and how much money Robyn took was a lot more than you were taking.
One viral comment put it plainly, how do you tell your kids their mother wasn't the one God chose? And suddenly, this wasn't just a story about adult relationships, it was about generational pain, about legacy, and about the emotional whiplash of being raised in a family that's now being rebranded as a spiritual accident. We've seen the strain between Kody and his older kids for years, the tension with Gabe, the estrangement from Garrison, the distance from some of his daughters. Viewers used to chalk it up to miscommunication or the stress of plural living. But now there's a new theory bubbling up. What if the kids pulled away, not just because of favoritism, but because they felt spiritually abandoned? That's the word people are using now. Abandoned, not just by a father, but by the very system that once told them their family was sacred. And Kody's latest statement? It poured salt on that already festering wound. Insiders allege some of the older kids have long suspected Kody's heart was never in balance. That the equal love story was a script, one he only half believed, even in the early days. And now, with the divine seal slapped onto Robyn like a holy stamp of approval, those old suspicions feel tragically confirmed, especially when you consider how many holidays were missed. How many texts went unanswered? How many milestones were only celebrated on one side of the family? It paints a picture of a patriarch who's not just biased, but unapologetically so. The emotional fallout is mounting, and fans are already speculating that this one tell-all moment might cement permanent divides within the Brown family.
I was leaving Kody, and there was no way I wanted to be tied to him in any way, shape, or form, and I did not like to deal with him at all on anything, and especially on finances. No, thank you.
Because if the foundation was built on spiritual unity, and now Kody says only one of his marriages was blessed, then everything else might start to crumble faster than anyone expected. And we're only just beginning to see the cracks. And the deeper you dig, the more it starts to look less like a spiritual revelation and more like a retroactive excuse. Because viewers haven't forgotten the long trail of receipts Kody's left behind, the financial imbalances, the emotional cold shoulders, the mysterious decision-making that always seemed to favor Robyn's comfort over everyone else's survival. So when he invokes divinity now, fans are asking the obvious, is this about love, or is it about rewriting the record? Because it sure sounds like he's taking every questionable choice from the last 15 years and wrapping it in a halo, Take the money trail. For starters, fans have been tracking it like digital detectives. From Robyn's nearly $900,000 home, fully decked out and filmed like a royalty suite, to the hired nanny she didn't need but somehow always had, the dollars have long spoken louder than any public denial. Meanwhile, Janelle and Christine were rationing groceries and juggling rental payments. Mary was stuck in emotional limbo with nothing but a bed and breakfast business and a dream Kody never supported. And yet, none of those wives ever got labeled as divine. No wonder the favoritism argument has now exploded into something even bigger.
There was no reason for them to think that I wasn't going to be fair.
Well, it feels like there was some distrust there that you weren't going to be fair.
Because Janelle and Mary are both leaving me going, wish I had some way to get alimony.
Spiritual gaslighting. Even Robyn's kids were reportedly getting more of Kody's presence, more daily interactions, more guidance, more Christmas traditions, while his older children saw less and less of their dad each year. This wasn't some subtle shift. It was a glaring pattern. And the divine justification? It feels to fans like a retroactive get-out-of-guilt card. Like, now that the dust has settled and the family is fractured, Kody's decided to reframe the past. Not as mistakes, but as fate. And that's what's got people fired up. Because this isn't just a PR move, it's a reframing of reality, served with a holy ribbon. And fans who followed this journey from the very first episode, they're not buying it. In fact, some say Kody's divine pivot is the most manipulative spin he's ever attempted. So the question now isn't just whether the bond with Robyn is sacred, it's whether this whole spiritual narrative is a way to absolve himself, while everyone else carries the weight. But what if this rewrite is leading to something even bigger than a confession? What if it's part of a final permanent departure from the faith that started it all? That theory gained traction almost overnight, especially after the resurfacing of that revealing interview Robyn gave, featured in the recent E! Online article. In it, she openly says what many suspected for months: she and Kody are done with polygamy. Not just stepping back. Done. She calls it a heartbreaking shift, but Kody? He sounds relieved, almost unburdened, and that's where it gets eerily strategic. Because if Kody has known for a while that he's no longer interested in plural marriage, then what was the point of clinging to the sister wives brand until now? The answer might be in the timing. Robyn says she feels like a scapegoat for the family's collapse, and that polygamy isn't working because no one else is there anymore. But fans argue that's disingenuous. It's not that the wives left polygamy, it's that Kody left them. Emotionally, spiritually, practically. And now, as he frames his relationship with Robyn as a divine exception, it's starting to look like the plan all along was to walk away from the plural lifestyle, just not all at once, but in phases, quietly, under the radar, until only Robyn was left standing. What really raised eyebrows is how Robyn phrases it. She says, "I want to live plural marriage, but I don't have the choice." And just like that, the narrative shifts again. She becomes the reluctant victim, mourning a family structure that she insists was torn away from her. But viewers aren't letting that slide. They remember Robyn's long track record of subtle power moves. The private conversations with Kody, the backdoor negotiations, the ways her needs were prioritized over the group. And now, with Kody officially dropping the polygamy pretense, fans are wondering if she really wanted it to last, or if she simply didn't want the backlash of being seen as the endgame wife. Either way, the rebranding is complete. Kody has gone from faithful plural patriarch to divinely matched monogamist, and he did it without ever publicly acknowledging the destruction left in his wake. So if they're done with the lifestyle, why keep clinging to the platform? What's next for a couple who've traded polygamy for a love story they claim was sent straight from heaven? The answer might lie in what they're not saying, because the silence around their next move is starting to feel deafening. Fans suspect this divine bond moment wasn't just an impulsive slip, it was a calculated test balloon, a way to see how the public would respond if Kody and Robyn quietly stepped out of the sister wives' legacy and into something new. A book deal? A couples podcast? A faith-based relationship coaching brand? No one knows for sure, but the breadcrumbs are starting to look suspiciously organized. Kody didn't just redefine his relationship, he redefined his role, not as a plural husband, but as a spiritually awakened partner, who's now above the fray of traditional polygamy drama. And the timing is curious. With viewership still strong but family participation dwindling, insiders whisper that producers have been scrambling to find a compelling narrative for future seasons. And just like that, In walks Kody with a plot twist tailor-made for controversy. The divine couple breaking free from the ruins of plural marriage to pursue a higher calling. Whether that's spiritual, financial, or just plain brand-driven, fans are getting the distinct sense that this isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of a rebrand. Robyn's portrayal has already begun to shift from sob wife to something closer to spiritual queen. Her language is softer now, more guarded. She emphasizes pain, heartbreak, and regret, but sidesteps accountability. And Kody, he speaks more like a preacher than a husband. "I have this divine bond," he said, as if quoting scripture, not explaining a breakup. It's no longer about right or wrong, fairness or favoritism. It's about destiny. The kind of word you use when you don't want to answer to people anymore. But here's the danger. When you wrap a personal decision in religious language, you stop inviting discussion. You shut the door on critique. And that's what has fans so rattled. Kody didn't just say he loves Robyn. He said God told him to. And if that's the narrative he's anchoring himself to, what does it mean for everyone else's truth? Because this doesn't just rewrite his story, it tries to overwrite theirs. And something tells us this divine rewrite isn't stopping at marriage. It might just be the first step in a brand new gospel, written by Kody and Robyn, for an audience they think is ready to follow. But not everyone's lining up to worship at that altar. In fact, a growing number of fans and even former insiders are calling foul. They see the pattern, and they're not impressed. They're exhausted. Because this isn't the first time Kody and Robyn have tried to pivot the narrative to make themselves look like the victims of their own decisions. Remember when Robyn cried over being misunderstood while living in the biggest house with the most help and the least visible strain? Or when Kody dismissed Christine's years of hurt with a single shrug, acting as if her exit came out of nowhere? This latest divine bond bombshell doesn't feel like a spiritual confession. It feels like the final act of a long, slow takeover. The rebrand is slick, but it's not subtle. Robyn's now casting herself as the one who wanted plural marriage more than anyone, which just happens to absolve her of any blame now that it's all fallen apart. But fans aren't buying the martyr routine anymore, especially not when receipts say otherwise. Robyn was the only wife with legal marriage status, the only one whose home was purchased outright, the only one with a personal nanny while the other wives juggled work, child-rearing, and emotional chaos on their own. And yet, she still wants us to believe she's the tragic center of this storm. That's where the backlash has reached a fever pitch. The hashtag Robyn Knew has started trending again, and Reddit threads are dissecting old episodes frame by frame, pointing out moments where her actions said one thing and her words said another. The quiet smirks, the selective tears, the strategic silences, they all look different now, under the glow of Kody's divine proclamation. Because if she really didn't want to be the favorite, why didn't she ever publicly object to being treated as one? Why didn't she speak up when her fellow wives were hurting? Why didn't she say something when Kody started slipping away from the rest of the family? Unless, of course, she believed the same thing he did, that this love was special, untouchable, meant to rise above the others. And if that's true, if Robyn knew all along that she was the endgame, then this isn't just about favoritism anymore. It's about betrayal dressed up as destiny. And the next move they make could confirm just how far they're willing to take it. And now here we are, standing at the edge of the story, staring down the aftermath. Because if Kody Brown truly believes his love for Robyn is divine, then we have to ask, what isn't he willing to rewrite in its name? The family? The faith? The past? Fans are left sifting through the wreckage of this so-called spiritual journey, and what they're finding isn't peace. It's a trail of discarded vows, alienated children, and ex-wives who gave their entire adult lives to a man who now speaks as if they were never really part of the plan. That's not just heartbreaking, it's humiliating. And in their silence, you can hear the cost of being unchosen. Because let's be honest, what happened on that tell-all couch wasn't about God. It was about power, about rewriting history in real time, with no room for dissent, about a man who couldn't admit to mistakes, so he elevated them into prophecy, and about a woman who sat beside him, saying nothing, as he crowned her the chosen one. Together, they didn't just exit polygamy, they buried it under a glowing, holy-sounding gravestone. And the people left mourning weren't the ones who gave up on the faith, they were the ones the faith gave up on. And now fans are watching closely, waiting to see what Kody and Robyn do next. Will there be a new show? A book? A spiritual brand about overcoming family chaos to find true love? Or will they quietly disappear into monogamous bliss, letting the public outrage fade while the rest of the Browns are left to explain the fallout? Either way, One thing is clear, this isn't just the end of a marriage, or even a lifestyle. It's the end of an illusion. The illusion that this family was ever united by belief, when maybe, all along, it was divided by something else. Ego, entitlement, and the delusion that one man could play prophet while everyone else played supporting cast. So now we turn it over to you. Do you think Kody's divine bond is something he truly believes, or is it just a final excuse to erase everything he broke? And what about Robyn? Has she been manipulated or orchestrating this the whole time? Be sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more, because the next video on your screen is waiting. And trust me, you won't believe what's coming next.